Hello, and welcome to this episode of Association Transformation. Andrew, hello. Thanks for coming back.
How you doing?
Don't sound too excited. You're
I
monotone. I mean, can you at least fake it?
was faking it. Uh,
Oh my, do people hear this? This is what I have to deal with. All right, can we just get to the guest? I mean, she and I really are could
oh,
have
you
done this ourselves.
even need me for this? Is that what you're suggesting?
I don't. Well, I do. You're a cautionary tale, so I need you here because the
So
theme
many
today is
levels.
that
So
the
many
theme today
levels.
the theme is navigating your association career.
Ugh.
And you are a highly cautionary tale. I want people to learn from both the good, the bad, and the ugly. So let's get to our guest. I'm very excited to have her. She and I've had the chance to work together a few times over the last couple years, and I've been following her career now, and I'm very excited to introduce Allison Read. Hello, Allison.
Hi, how are you?
I am great. So you are now the Director of Component Leadership Programs with the American Institute of Architects. Congratulations. I know that's a new-ish role for you.
Yes, thank you so much. Yeah, it was exciting. It was an exciting transition, and I think really just an accumulation of kind of the path that I've had and the decisions I've made along the way. So I'm excited to share more about that.
Well, let's have a show of hands. Who arrived at the association space on purpose?
There
Okay,
are
no
no
one's,
hands,
yeah,
no
no one's
hands
raising their
here.
hand. No one's raising their hand. And now that I have my CAE, I feel I am an association professional, but this wasn't the path that I had laid out for myself. Andrew, how did you get into association work?
Oh, bad luck. No, I worked in central government and sort of was
Did you? I don't think I knew you were a bureaucrat. Now this makes so much more sense.
in the UK and in New Zealand, yeah, for quite a number of years. And then I kind of was working with membership organizations as a civil servant, and then sort of fell head first into that bucket and have never been able
Civil
to get back out. Yeah.
civil servant. Interesting. Okay. Allison, we mentioned your recent
Yeah.
transition. How did you begin in this amazing niche market?
Yeah, so I went to school for dance and acting and have a degree in acting. So it was
You
a very
do?
natural, I do. So it was a very natural transition. No, but because of that, I had done things that I was very passionate about, and I knew that going into a more traditional career path, I wanted to be of service. And so going to the association industry was exactly that. I got to give back to our profession, and it was kind of a natural fit, so to speak. And I think that's something to really understand as if you're getting into associations for the first time, it's okay not to know sort of what that thing is that maybe you want to do, but exploring. I think I did that really early in my career. I kind of latched on to the things that I like to do about every job. And then the next job, I was closer to doing more and more of things that I really truly enjoyed.
So when you begin, I too did not come to associations initially. I came through political advocacy and government affairs, and I just like you wanted to serve a constituency, wanted to help. So I knew right away that I wanted to be in kind of a member facing role. Did you
Yeah.
always, I mean, given your, now that I know, trained actor and
Yeah.
dance background, I'm assuming you always wanted to be in
Yeah.
charge.
So I entered in more of the programming and events side of associations, which was a great fit because think like theater production. I understood AV, I understood events really well. I didn't really realize at first that there was this dichotomy between member facing and non-member facing roles. And I think it's something really important to understand when you enter associations or if you're thinking about your next step in your career because they're very different. And I've worked with people, I've seen, challenges when they're surprised at how much members, you know, it varies from association to association, but sometimes members are very involved in what you do. And if you're not comfortable working with a multitude of personalities, and that may change every year, usually it does, you know, there are other career paths within associations that are more, you know, internal, and those are best for, you know, people who may not want to deal with the multitude of personalities. I always say that association professionals should have a degree in psychology too.
Absolutely. I know you're so polite about it. Multitude of personalities. Yes. That's so gentle. I love it. And that's what I always loved about my associations. I loved the members. I didn't always love the work or the execution of different initiatives or projects, but I always loved the members. And that can be a distraction. But how do you know when your membership culture is one that you're serving correctly? I mean, that can get muddy.
I've thought a lot about this, and I really think this kind of goes into a culture conversation, where you not all in we know that not all industries are made the same, right? And so I know within myself that I wanted to work for less traditional industries. I'm not sure I'd be a great fit for a medical association. I kind of know that about myself just because of the industry, you know, the work. I like to feel that I can relate or understand their profession because it helps me do my job to the best of my abilities. So I think you have to really evaluate that for yourself. Does what they do resonate with you? Is that even important to you?
Mm-hmm. And what, having just done your transition, Andrew, did you always know kind of the specialty that your members served?
Um, yes, and it varied quite frankly, it varied how interested I was in it in terms of how successful I therefore was as an individual. And I think the subject areas, the professions that really sort of ignited sparked my interest, they were the organizations that I was most successful in as a staffer. And I think, it's really interesting what you were saying there about, you know, the kind of forward facing member facing versus the kind of internal. And I never ever wanted to be member facing ever. I just I love working in non-profits, and arguably I still do if you speak to my accountant. But I loved the ethos and the spirit and the purpose of the non-profit environment. But in terms of engaging, with the kind of on a human level with the membership, just wasn't me. Just wasn't me.
I think that's really important for people who are coming from another industry into associations. I've seen that shock when they don't realize they have to pass like their marketing materials past the president because they want to see them. They're like, when you're used to very much being able to make decisions internally, often we have to get that member approval on things, and it can slow down our work, or you have to, I shouldn't say slow down, you have to plan for those sort of things. That could be a real change. So that's just something super to be aware of as you navigate your career.
Well, and it's so funny. You think about the due diligence that you would want to do when you're evaluating, an organization you may want to apply with or accept an offer from.
Yeah.
And the first thing you look up is their financial health. You pull the 990, great. But how do you ask that question about what is the culture of management from not only the staff, but the leadership? I mean, how do you approach
right.
that so what level of, I don't want to say micromanagement, but what level of buy-in you're going to have to seek from every level in the chain of command?
Yeah, so I think a good thing to ask is upfront, what are the committees and work groups that you are expected to contribute to or lead? Sometimes that's in the job description, but sometimes, there's this little committee that you didn't know about when you start. And I think through the interview process, also asking the dynamic. I think there's a smart way you can ask the dynamic of that committee. So some committees are really just to inform, some view themselves as the decision makers on certain things. So understanding your relationship to those, again, if you have to work with committees or groups, what is that really staff committee relationship? to your point, I think there are ways that you could understand, there are questions that you could ask to understand the health of the organization. As you mentioned, Elisa, GuideStar, didn't really know to do that in the beginning of my career. So I think that's a great tip. Like, check their GuideStar. How's their financial health doing? I
But it's
think,
very dangerous. I mean, GuideStar is a
yes.
Pandora's box because you start poking around to learn about other organizations, whether it be your competition or that association you might apply with. And then you think, oh, well, let me just go look up my organization. And you can't unsee the numbers that you see in GuideStar. So this is an important warning. Once you go into GuideStar and you look at things like expenditures and salaries and how much money is coming from what sources, and again, salaries, you cannot go back. So do not go in there unless you are willing to never unsee that information and not let it affect how you do your job.
Yeah, I consider it one data point. It shouldn't be the thing that drives your decision making around a career
Right.
move. It's a data point. I think other ways to understand the culture or health of the organization is, and I would love to hear from you too, because these are my two thoughts, but asking for their membership trends, right? So, I mean, we all know that especially from COVID, associations are dealing with challenges, but what are their overall membership trends? I think that's a good data point. Not related to that, if you have to travel, this is just a lesson learned. If you have to travel a lot for your job, what are their reimbursement policies? If they're nickel and diming you for coffee, like they won't pay for your coffee, or they're making you share a room with another person, like that might be a red flag.
Yes. Yeah, and that's the thing. There are so many questions as candidates we should be asking. And as the market has shifted, I don't know whether we're in an employee market or an employer market. I don't know. It's gone back and forth so much over the last 3 years. I don't know who has the leverage, and maybe it's different per organization. But there are so many questions that you should ask, that both sides should be asking, and maybe more tools than ever before. She's young and vibrant and brilliant. Andrew and I are chiseled, old, grumpy veterans.
I'm
So,
young. Wow.
right? I mean, we're not here to talk age or discriminate against Andrew because he's
I
old and grumpy.
appreciate that. I haven't gotten that compliment in a while, so.
But wouldn't you say that in the association management space that there's more support and more tools and communities for mid-career professionals, and to help those who are new into associations find their pathway forward?
Yeah, and there were a few crucial things where I felt I was on the cusp, right? Like I was really at a crossroads in my career. I could have gone, again, coming into that programming and events. The next step for me was more of a director of events role. And I had a really smart CEO say to me, and this might not be true for all people. If you go the events route, like director of events is really kind of where the career path ends. It's really hard to get into upper management. And at the time, that was something that was really attractive to me. And so in my next step, I took a role that still allowed me to do programming, which I love and I'm naturally good at, but also gave me exposure to more association uh, industry background. So I entered the components sector, where you really have to be a jack of all trades and know a lot about associations. And it just opened up a different world, a new world for me, and more allowed me to advance, as I go along in my career. There are other important things I did at that time when I was at the crossroads. And I'm not a paid spokesperson for these organizations, but Association Forum, they just launched at the time a leadership development program. And that was wonderful. And there was programming throughout the year. I met like-minded people who were association, kind of go-getters who wanted to advance in their career as well. I met and we heard about, what is that career path that a CEO takes. So that was a great resource for me. I also pursued the 40 Under 40 award from Association Forum, and that really kind of opened up a whole new career path, gave me clout. And I think so that's a great award to pursue. Yes, Elisa.
Are there 50 under 50s? Are there 50 under 50 lists?
I don't know. I don't know. There should be.
Can there be 47 under 47? Where does this break down?
I think you're talking about people approaching retirement. So it's like, you're counting in the other direction then, I think. It's kind of like, are there 50 people left standing type thing? I don't think.
How dare you?
I think it's really interesting, though, Alison, when you said that. When you said that, and it's good advice, that the director of education, not education, events, you'll sort of hit that ceiling in terms of progressing, and I think it's fascinating because, and it was good advice, but it shouldn't be this. I don't think you should hit that ceiling in that particular role. I actually think, and it's really, I think it's as legitimate and as valid a pathway to senior leadership as any other. But I think it just really got me thinking about. I've heard directors of finance say the same thing, and I've heard directors of marketing say the same thing, and I'm beginning to wonder,
and where are all these execs coming from?
Yeah, who is it who gets to progress? And is there some kind of, I don't know, is there a secret group that we don't know about? But it just kind of makes me think there's an opportunity there for somebody, Association Forum or ASAE or somebody to sort of start sort of educating, as it were, the profession that actually these shouldn't be hindrances. In fact, far from it. They should be the foundations on which the springboards in which you can progress through up the organization or through your career.
Demystifying the career path. And I want to reiterate that I know that's not true for all people, the director of events, but I think what my nugget of truth was in that comment was that I knew I wanted to explore other facets of associations. And I knew that would have been really hard to do in an event, just being the director of events. So I leveraged that. It was something I felt I could always come back to if I wanted to, but what are some other aspects of within an association that I wanted to gain experience in?
There's so many layers to this. And we talk about this magical pathway to the upper management levels. I've seen a shift away from some of the more gender stereotypes around roles. It used to be, and I feel like when I was in my initial career, women were often in event positions, fundraising positions, membership positions, and I think that has somewhat started to resolve itself with a greater amount of balance and opportunities for all individuals to explore, to your point, Allison, explore different areas and opportunities. But if we each had to give a nugget to that new association staff person, what would it be? What would it be? What questions should they be asking? What should they be observing? Or maybe even learning about themselves? What would that piece of advice be to maybe even the younger you?
Yeah, that's a great question. My advice to a new person entering the field would be to stay curious, fill your knowledge gaps, figure out what those are, because the association industry is a different beast from other industries. So stay curious, fill those knowledge gaps, figure out what they are for you, and be a sponge. Continuously learn. We have amazing resources, as we mentioned, Association Forum, ASAE, incredible. You have peer groups that you can tap into to just better yourself and learn those things that, again, may be just a gap in knowledge for you.
Andrew?
Be prepared and be willing and welcome being a jack of all trades. I think,
yes.
Yeah, I think even if you're working in those big associations, those big staff teams, still be prepared and welcome the opportunity to just do lots of different stuff that might feel utterly irrelevant at the time you're doing it, but my God, when you move on to your next job, you'll realize that you've just learned so many new skills, how much knowledge, and new people.
Yeah, don't shy away from those small teams. Those
No.
small associations and small teams really throw you into deep ends of the pool that you may never get to experience at a larger organization. I think back to what you said early on, Allison, that as you tried different things and learned what you liked, each role, each change allowed you to go and pursue a little more of that. And I guess my advice would be don't be afraid to move around. Don't be afraid to to explore other organizations and other opportunities. Your trajectory may not be a straight line, and that's okay. The grass is not always greener, and sometimes what you learn, the hardships that you experience, the challenges that you survive, and the struggles that you have to endure are what will ultimately help you get to that next step, that achieve that dream. So don't always just look for the next option, and sometimes be willing to leave. Be willing to leave where you are and try something new.
Yeah, when we're young in our career, not just young, but new in our career, we want to have it figured out, but allow yourself to play and as Andrew mentioned, be resourceful, learn, take on those things. You're going to be that jack of all trades, because through taking on various things, you're going to learn what you like and what you gravitate towards in associations. And that can determine your next step.
And recognize that as the high performer, you're probably going to be punished with more work. So you have to figure out how to set up boundaries, how to say no, but yes, how to say yes, but no, and set up boundaries so that you do have work-life balance, and that you're not always thrown the mess just because you're the hardest worker or you're the most competent in the room who they can trust.
Right.
Yeah, I think you make a really good point there. I think you make an extremely good point about what we call work-life balance. I read a really interesting article the other day saying that for a generation coming into the workforce now, there is no such thing as work-life balance. It's just life balance. And actually, I think, when you are...
What does that mean? What's life balance?
Just getting it, just getting it right. Just sort of, yes, you got to work, but actually it's just part of your life. It's not separate from, it's not distinct from, it's part of what you do, but it's not necessarily who you do. And a lot of people now are sort of not defining, and fair play to them, I more power to their elbow. They're not defining themselves by what they do for a living. I very much did, I very much did when I went into the workforce, and probably, until I sort of wrapped up as a chief exec, I really sort of I identified with what I did for a living, but I don't think that really doesn't seem to be as prominent in sort of people's thinking now. So it's not really work-life balance; it's just striking the right balance in your life.
Interesting.
I agree. I think that, especially, coming out of the last 3 years, people are reevaluating, their relationship with work. And it's okay to show up and be excellent when you're on the job, but you have to find a way to disconnect from that. And that's super important as well.
And I still think the professional development piece that I still struggle with, and I think is a struggle for chief staff executives and those working their way up, is to find the balance at work where you can be both competent and vulnerable.
Right.
We're standing in front of boards. We're there. We have to be credible. We have to earn their trust. We have to advance a mission. In some cases, these organizations have the entire industry or profession on their shoulders. How do you, as an executive, how do you, as a senior staff member, ask for help? How do you raise your hand and say you don't know? That's something I think we all have to find a balance because of the importance of these roles.
I'm not sure that I think you need to pose that question to the people around that individual, not necessarily how does let's say how does the ED or the CEO ask for help? I think you need to be challenging the people around the boardroom, for example, saying, how do you create an environment that allows the chief executive to feel safe enough and confident enough that they can ask for help? I don't think it's not just about the individual. It's about, and that's true of everybody in all environments. It's not just about the boardroom, but how does leadership and management create that safe environment, that psychological safety net that allows you to feel that you can be vulnerable and that you can put yourself out there and not worry about your credibility, them judging you, being embarrassed, and I think too often we put the onus of responsibility on the individual, to put themselves out there and to be human. But actually, we all need to think about how do we create that work environment that allows us all, to be trusting enough that you can be vulnerable in the work environment.
Well, another plug for association psychology, I guess.
Yes. I wanted to mention something, not to go back, but I am going back on. I want to mention something Andrew said about work-life balance, because this is important for the association industry. Our cycles are all cyclical. The work cycle is all cyclical annually, right? More or less, right? We know when our big annual meetings are. We know when, typically when committee meetings are held, things like that for most of us, right? It's pretty cyclical. I know it's different when you get higher up, but I have found that knowing those things, I know when I have to really be locked in, and I am coming up on a program and the month before the program or the month we're opening registration, it's going to be intense, right? And I know those gaps in the year where I can breathe a little bit and take my vacations and take my time. So, it's not work-life balance every day, but there's work-life balance throughout my year.
Yeah. And I always called that the manic depression of association life.
I love that.
There's the peak of the roller coaster, and then there's the slow valleys. And if you have that I don't know, if you have the strength for both of those, then I think associations are a career that can offer an amazing amount of versatility and ongoing learning and opportunity for each day to be different, while at the same time knowing what season you're headed into.
And I would add to that is it is the same when you get to the very top, when you're the CEO, it is exactly the same. The cycle of business development, stakeholder engagement, planning, investing, it's all the same. It all goes on that cycle. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, this is, as the year draws to an end, this is that season for reflection. And I so appreciate Allison joining us and sharing with us what she's learned. Again, congratulations on your recent transition. AIA is lucky to have you, and we look forward to watching your career as it progresses.
Thank you.
Good thing you got your award for 40 under 40 now, because obviously there's nothing above this. Once you're over 40, I guess the world doesn't care.
Yeah, for that, then you pinnacle of your career, then you become you're as a consultant. I feel a little bit. Are you about to retire or something, Lisa? Because this feels like we're wrapping up to the end of my career. I feel like.
Are you retired? No, I don't know. I've seen so many 40 under 40s this last couple months. The awards come out at the end of the year, and for a society that is, I mean, I don't want to say geriatric in its tilt, but
It's surprised we don't have more awards at the top. Yeah.
It's amazing that with such a new commitment to diversity and inclusion that we are so, blind to anyone over 40 years old. Sorry, I'm just.
Well, Elisa, you have the 50 under 50 in my heart. So
thank you. I'm not even 50. I mean, Jesus.
I know, 50 under 50.
Oh my God. Let's just wrap this up. I've got to go schedule some Botox or something. This is getting depressing. Sorry, back to Allison. This is not about me. This is about all of those who we are so thankful have found the association profession, and we invite to stay with us, to evolve and continue to navigate your professional journey through the nonprofit space. It's a magical place. It's an important niche, and the membership community is one that I think can deliver everything you're looking for in a profession. But do stay curious, do ask the right questions, do challenge yourself, and do make Association Transformation one of your favorite podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. Andrew, any last words?
Nice.
I mean, I don't mean it like that. Sorry.
Yeah, last words. Oh my God, honestly, well, I've enjoyed my career. I just want to thank you for this gold watch. As I walk into the twilight years of my existence. No, all good with me, Lise.
Okay, good. Well, this is our last pod of the year, so.
Oh, is it?
Wow.
Yes.
Oh, right. Oh,
So drum roll for that.
Honored.
Oh, right. Well, okay then. I didn't. Right. Well, have a
So
great.
yeah, I mean, I don't mean that in an overly dramatic way. We'll be back. I mean, I think we're up to 39 listeners now. I mean,
Well, to all our listeners, have a very festive season.
yes, thank you. And Allison, thank you for joining us. And until next time, put your members and your mission first.